Women in Shorts is the 6th episode of the 36th season of The Simpsons. This is directed by Eric Koenig, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And I don't necessarily know how I feel about this. When I read the basic concept, I thought, I'm going to hate this because it comprises multiple different shorts, each focusing on different Simpsons characters, different female Simpsons characters, of course. And I don't tend to like episodes, not just of The Simpsons, of any TV show, where we just have a bunch of small stories. But actually, a couple were not too bad. But then I'd say by the final third, I was just really bored, and the novelty had worn off, and I lost all interest. So there are some good moments. I'll basically just go through each story. There are some where I have no thoughts. There are some where I have a couple of thoughts. So it's not going to be the most in-depth discussion, other than me just saying basically what happens and saying whether or not I liked it, because I don't have too much to say. I guess I can sum up by saying, first of all, there were some good moments. I'll point them out as we go through things, but I probably would never watch this episode again. We start off with Luann van Houten. She is obsessed with wine merchandise, and the other women in the room suggest other avenues such as coffee merchandise, and then she lands on being a proud slut, which, I mean, you do you. It was, I guess, a decent enough way to start things off, having a lot of female characters in the room. I think it kind of definitely helped establish the rest of the episode. Then we have Malibu Stacy visiting Shona, and I didn't like this short, but I feel like they could have done something with that for a Treehouse of Horror. It is parodying the Barbie film when Barbie comes to this world and comes to the real world, and the short itself I found to be quite boring, but I would have been quite keen to see what they could have done with that from a more horror aspect if they'd fleshed it out a bit and maybe kept it aside for a Treehouse of Horror, because that could have had a lot of potential. But what we got here was too brief and not that interesting. Then we have Mrs. Muntz reading Nelson a bedtime story. The narrative in this one I thought was boring, as in the story we were being told I didn't care for. But Nelson was really sweet, and we get to see this softer side of the character, and interacting with his mother was really nice. So the story within a story I didn't care for, but Nelson I quite liked here. We then have Marge's story, and she's in a store and she's just at the checkout. She's forgotten to get tampons, so she asks Homer to go and get them, and Homer does not want to go anywhere near them. So we have a musical number that I quite liked. I liked the musical number. It's a nice little self-contained story. I didn't mind that one. Then we have Patty and Selma, and they have to share their cigarettes because there's a shortage, and it's fine. I didn't care for it, but I do like that they included Patty and Selma, and I guess the story makes sense for those characters, but it wasn't very interesting. Bernice Hibbert, she and Dr. Hibbert are on a date at a restaurant. They're doing some role-playing. It's not interesting. I really didn't get any satisfaction out of that. I didn't really care for it. Then we have Mrs. Risotto's story, who is Luigi's mother, and they're in a courtroom scene, which I love. I love courtroom scenes. I love courtroom dramas, and the way she treats people is quite interesting. As a character, I liked her. The story, I guess, was short and sweet. I didn't mind it. Then we have Lunch Lady Dora. It's fine. I have nothing to say, really. It's about cooking with certain ingredients, and yeah, it's fine. I can take it or leave it. Lisa Simpson's was very boring. It's basically a Narnia-themed story, and I liked her hair. The decoration in her hair looked very nice, and we had some interesting characters there. The story itself was very brief, as they all are, but it felt underdeveloped. I feel like they could have done more with it, and again, maybe that could have been a more Treehouse of Horror-based story if they made it. Well, it does get a little dark, but they could have done more with it, and I think that could have been a good place for it there. We then have Agnes Skinner, and I love this one. I really, really loved it, because she's lonely. That's not why I love it. That came out of my mouth, and that's not what I meant. She's lonely, so she's joining this dating app, and she's recording her video to put onto the dating site, and it was just really beautiful and really moving, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So I have to say, that was absolutely worth it. Then we have Helen Lovejoy's story. Really don't have anything to say about that either. Not really bothered about it. And the same with Rochelle Payton's story. And I feel like by that point, I was very, very bored. I'd kind of peaked at Mrs. Skinner, at Agnes Skinner's story. And then it kind of just, the last few just faded off a little bit. And the ending is with Marge and Homer. And yeah, the last kind of 3 or 4 minutes, by that point I was ready to end it. But yeah, I definitely think that Agnes Skinner's was really, really beautiful. I think they could have done great stuff with Malibu Barbie and Lisa in Narnia, and maybe a couple of the others as well, had they fleshed them out a bit and kept them aside for a more horror-based Treehouse of Horror. I think there could have been something really good there. The bit with Marge and Homer and the song in the store, I rather like. There's a great message in that as well. Well, kind of, because Marge tells Homer they don't pay attention to what you're buying. They don't remember what you're buying. And then during the musical number, they prove that actually the cashiers do remember what people are buying. And it made me laugh, because I feel like we've all had a time in our life where we've had to buy something, certainly pre-online shopping, and we felt nervous about it, whatever it may be. And people do tell us, but they're not paying attention. They just scan it and get on with their day. And I think that that's probably true, but I like the fact that the song was saying, no, they do remember. So I had a lot of fun with that message. In general, I guess Women in Shorts is okay. I think some of the stories are quite weak, very unmemorable. Some of them had potential, but they were too short and they needed a little bit more time. I do have to praise the variety of the characters in this, not just the women and their own stories, but a lot of the stories managed to bring in other characters as well. So we do have a lot of characters here. I guess as a one-time watch, it's okay. I would happily seek out a couple of them, such as Marge's story, Malibu Stacy's story, and of course Agnes Skinner's. There are a lot of S's in this sentence. My tongue's getting tied. Agnes Skinner's story, because I genuinely thought that one was very, very well done. So as a one-time watch, as a whole, the episode is fine. Definitely room for improvement. I think some of the stories could have had a lot more value if they'd been fleshed out and kept aside with a more horror angle for Treehouse of Horror. But other than that, I suppose it's fine. Women in Shorts is better than expected, with some genuinely good moments, and ultimately, I suppose I didn't mind it too much.